Please remain seated. The show will begin in 3, 2...
Like a Hellcat.
Hi, I'm FandomTraveller87.
Want to hear a ghost story?
The sun soon began to set at 7 o'clock. Sam and Betsy had just finished seeing a movie at the local theater. It was a horror movie that they snuck into, without having to pay, of course. And they did this while her dog Calypso was being babysat by the barbershop owner, who happened to be friends with Betsy's grandmother, Tallulah. Now the fog had just rolled in from the marsh, which wasn't too far away, and the temperature had dropped significantly to 40 degrees. This wasn't uncommon in this town, so Betsy really wasn't bothered by it. Sam then hopped on his bike, and he started pedaling and going much faster, but as he reached halfway down the opposite street towards 4th, he turned his head around, and then he waved goodbye to her. As soon as she had lost sight of him, Betsy then proceeded to ride her bike home. Then Betsy Ann remembered Farmer Marigold. Farmer Marigold's farm was only half a mile away, and she was very familiar with the area. She would always pass by the pumpkin patch in the cornfield, and she would reminisce about the times, especially during the school year, last year, where she would help Farmer Marigold with the farm labor, mostly pertaining to milking the cows and helping them graze and tending to the sick horses. And, well, Betsy Ann just felt more comfortable going that way. And there was also a payphone. And Betsy Ann also happened to have a few quarters in her pocket. So she would be able to call her grandmother up and apologize and explain that she would be home as soon as she could. And just like that, not too long after, Betsy Ann had treaded down the path on her bike, and she skidded off to the side a little bit as she hit a pothole. But fortunately, the bike hadn't tilted and she hadn't fallen off, so she was able to get some friction. And Calypso, fortunately, was unharmed. Not too long after, she had reached Marigold's farm. And Marigold happened to be sitting on her porch swing, and she called out to Betsy. And Betsy said hello back in a holler. And then they had continued down that path. It was then that Betsy Ann's eyes caught a glimpse of that ugly scarecrow in the cornfield. It seemed to be staring deeply into her soul. This definitely brought her back to reading that one Goosebumps book by R.L. Stine about how two kids go to visit their grandparents during the summer, and one of the farmhands, Stanley, uses a spell book to bring the scarecrows to life at night, and they terrorize everyone. Yeah, it definitely gave Betsy Ann chills, but she couldn't get distracted now. She had to get home to her grandmother. The girl was whistling merrily to the tune of "Oh, Susanna," while her dog kept up with her at her side, while wagging its tail and panting a little. Things were calm and cool for a while, up until when a few moments had passed. Something had jolted her to a stop, and Betsy Ann had listened carefully to her surroundings. The wind was picking up, and she could hear something faint. She could hear someone. She couldn't quite make out what it was. Perhaps, maybe it was just her ears playing tricks on her. Yet something about this didn't really settle right Something was definitely wrong. Betsy Ann knew that she really wasn't alone out there. Someone or something was after her. She picked up the pace, her dog close behind her, as always. She began to pant, and her lungs were burning from all the exhaustion in her legs. Her muscles were tiring out so fast. I have to keep going, she told herself aloud. I can't turn around. I can't look back. No matter what, I cannot look back. Then she heard something else that ringed in her ears, and it was deafening, and it even scared the crap out of her own dog, that was starting to whimper, as though it was frightened out of its wits. She could feel someone's hot breath tingling down her neck, and she could then hear another voice say, then some other invisible force, so powerful, so strong, had flung her from her bike as though she was lifted up and thrown to the ground. Her bike was discarded, and Calypso was cowering and crying. She couldn't move, but she was shaking like a leaf. Betsy Ann had groaned in pain. She rolled on her side slowly, but grimacing in such agony. Her elbow was dislocated. It was in her right arm. She looked over to her dog, that stared at her in such terror. She tried to crawl over to her dog, but then she felt something grab her left ankle, and it began to drag her off into the woods. She was screaming and hollering for help, but then suddenly she heard a gunshot off in the distance. Betsy Ann then looked up. She could not believe her eyes. It was that ugly scarecrow from the cornfield. It had a large, gaping hole in its chest. The scarecrow collapsed, falling apart into pieces. Then Farmer Marigold called out, Betsy Ann! Betsy Ann, dear, are you all right? Betsy Ann! Betsy Ann, answer me! Marigold soon made her way to the injured girl. She had knelt down at her side and snaked her arm around the girl's neck, just to sit her up a little bit to give her some support, and then trailed it down to her back. And then, with all the strength that she could muster, she helped the girl up to her feet. And then she had slowly strapped her gun behind her back, and then she whistled to Calypso that came trotting over. Calypso licked Marigold's hand, and Marigold pat the dog on the head reassuringly. She then said to the girl, Everything's going to be all right, hun. I'm going to call your grandma and explain everything. In the meantime, I'm taking you home and I'm going to fix you some supper. How about some gumbo? Does that sound good? Betsy Ann nodded. The girl still had a pained smile on her face, but she was trying to be a bit optimistic considering the situation. Oh, don't worry, darling. Everything's going to be just fine. You're safe with me, okay? Nothing's going to happen to you again, I promise you that. Eventually, Marigold sat the girl down at the far end of the kitchen table, fixed her some gumbo, and served it to her. She then checked the girl's elbow. Marigold sighed. Yeah, I'm going to have to call the doctor tomorrow and schedule a home visit. I would take you to the hospital, darling, but my truck has a failed engine, and I gotta have somebody come and pick it up tomorrow to get it fixed. Well, don't you worry. In the meantime, you just eat, and I'm gonna go make that phone call, okay? Betsy Ann did a slight nod, and so she proceeded to eat. She struggled a little bit. It wasn't easy using her left hand. She always used her right arm for everything. Marigold had quickly went into the kitchen and dialed the number to Betsy Ann's grandmother's house. Hello, Tallulah, this is Marigold. I'm sure you've been awful worried about your granddaughter, but I assure you she's in good hands. We had a bit of an incident, and I'm not sure how to explain this, but I just want to apologize on her behalf. I really hope, you won't be too upset, but she had, injured her elbow. Tallulah, on the other line, well, she definitely wasn't thrilled, but she took a few minutes to regain her composure. She then asked patiently, well, how did she injure her elbow, Marigold? Marigold rubbed her temples. Tiresome. Her expression mixed with reluctance and confusion and just utter shock. Well, she was riding her bike down past my property and she was attacked by something. There was a dreaded pause briefly, and then Tallulah said in a panicked tone, what attacked my granddaughter? Who could have done this? Did you just say something attacked her? What was it? What did it look like? She demanded. This is insane, Marigold thought to herself. The elderly farmer lady then replied gravely, it was my scarecrow. I don't know how it happened, but that thing was alive somehow. I thought that maybe somebody... Tallulah gently cut her off. I should have known this would happen. I should have suspected this. Marigold, when my granddaughter is done eating, you have her call me immediately. She and I need to have a long, vigorous discussion. You understand me? I appreciate everything that you're doing for her. I really do, and I thank you. But this is an urgent matter, and she and I have to talk privately about this whole incident. A little bit of time passed, and Tallulah called her granddaughter, and, well, they had somewhat of a not-so-pleasant conversation. And, well, Betsy Ann couldn't blame her. She had every right to be upset. Betsy, I am so disappointed in you. How could you be so reckless? What exactly's been going on? You've been dodging and hiding, being secretive with me lately, and I don't like it. I need you to tell me everything. I need you to fill me in on what's going on. Grandma, listen, I'm really, really sorry, Betsy said. I know I messed up. But I'm not so sure that, well, I don't know exactly how to put it. Tallulah sighed and groaned on the other line. Well, I'm listening. We got all the time in the world, so I suggest you start talking, young lady. Then Betsy Ann, with little reluctance, told her grandma everything, from beginning to end. Especially about Sam and his experiences in the old Kingswood house. Tallulah was enraged. What in tarnation were you two thinking, lurking around in that old place? That hellhole. Have you any idea what could have happened? You both could have been... Tallulah stops herself. She begins to stifle a little sob. I've already lost your mother, and my son-in-law. Betsy, you're the only family that I have. I have no one else. I need you to promise me that you won't go back to that house anymore. You understand me, young lady? There are so many things that you don't understand. I've told you all that I could because I thought that it was something that you had to know. But I didn't think that you would take things this far, especially putting that poor boy at risk. Now, I understand that you and him are best friends, and I have nothing against that. But you know that I already have enough problems with his mother. That woman is already enough of being a thorn in my side over other things. The last thing I need is to get a call from the sheriff about this whole mess, especially if she decides to make a report. Now, I know this might be a little bit difficult for you, but I think that it's best that you and Sam don't see each other for a while. And I know that it's going to be hard, but I'm going to need you to trust me. Okay? This made Betsy Ann sad. What about Sam? He really needed her. This was something that you just couldn't ignore. There was so much seriousness in this situation regarding that place. So much unanswered, unresolved things that had to be dealt with. Whatever was there was trapped. It could have been that ghost of that murdered woman, Mrs. Kingswood, whose life was taken by her husband. But Betsy Ann didn't want to hurt her grandmother anymore. She had already disappointed her enough, and she just didn't want to break her heart again. Okay, Grandma, I understand. Summer vacation had ended. It was the beginning of September, and everyone was back in school. Sam had stopped by Betsy Ann's house, and Tallulah was waiting for him. Why, hello, Sam. How are you? Sam was... He was definitely, dazed and just utterly baffled, and he also was overwhelmed with guilt. I'm sorry, Miss Tallulah, about Betsy Ann. I'm so sorry that she had that accident. Oh boy. So much that he didn't know. What exactly did Tallulah tell him? Tallulah gave a soft, reassuring smile and patted his shoulder. Well, son, I appreciate you coming by to check on her. Because of you, she's passing science now. She's got her grade up to a C, and she couldn't have done it without you. But anyway, how are your studies coming along? I got all A's in my classes, ma'am, he replied. Very good. Would you like to come inside for some... Sam whiffed the air. Oh, are you making meatloaf tonight? Tallulah chuckled in amusement. Why, yes, my famous meatloaf. I've also got mashed potatoes and steamed veggies. I'm sure you must be quite hungry. Why don't you come in and join us for supper? That's if your mama doesn't mind. Sam shuddered a little. Oh, his mother. Well, not that it mattered. She was always working. She didn't really spend any time with him, and nor did she ever cook for him. Not like she used to. With that being said, Sam had joined Betsy Ann and her grandmother that night for supper. And they had a very long discussion about all sorts of interesting topics like the weather, school, sports, pretty much all the normal kid stuff. Then Sam had the nerve to ask as he nervously sipped his orange juice. How much did Betsy Ann tell you about you know? He was definitely beating around the bush, but Tallulah huffed. Oh, are we really going to have this discussion now? She groaned. Listen, I've already spoken to my granddaughter, and I have to tell you that I don't approve of this one bit. I don't want neither of you going near that house, you understand? Okay, guys, this concludes part 4 of my original ghost story, The Shadow Lady of the Kingswood House. I do want to apologize for any background noise that you heard that might have disrupted some of the audio, but I assure you that I've spent a lot of time editing all day long to make sure that everything was done somewhat decently so that I could fix any minor errors at least. But I still hope that you enjoyed the video regardless. And also, my voice is a little hoarse at the moment and I need to rest it. But I may just continue on with working on part 5 tomorrow as my next project. Or I might do the continuation of Hello Neighbor Missing Pieces for the next part. And also, I'm probably going to, well, for now, I'm going to table doing episode 4, season 1 of my web series Creep Factor. That is still in production, but it's probably going to be the last priority right now. Still, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all future content. And so please check out my stuff. I appreciate you all very much, and I absolutely appreciate the views. I love you all dearly. So remember to keep your windows barred shut, the curtains drawn, your doors locked, and always look underneath your bed before you go to sleep. I'm FandomTraveller87, and thank you again for joining me on this terrifying tale. Until next time, happy Halloween. Bye-bye.